Shalom, family. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. It's always a pleasure and a privilege when I get together with all of you to go over these headlines and take a look at the things that are happening in our world. And I'm certainly grateful for all of you who share the links and certainly encourage our brothers and sisters around the world. And certainly happy for those of you that are getting the breakthrough in this hour. I'm certainly hearing from people all over, and good things are happening. I do believe it is a great time right now. So thank you again for joining us. And we've got quite a bit to cover tonight. For those of you that may be joining us for this labor of love that you see us doing here, well, we do this every week, and we decided that doing this more often than that was going to be too much. And then, of course, disconnecting completely was a very unhealthy thing to do. So we found this middle ground, and many people have really appreciated this. And so thank you. We're always trying to do our best to present as much as we can in this time. And we have this great website called remnantwatch.com. That's remnantwatch.com. It's a labor of love, and we certainly appreciate your support. It is a very difficult job. It's probably the most difficult job, most difficult broadcast I do each week is the weekly news update. I don't know if most people don't know that, but it is. And it's time consuming, but it is something that we do out of love. And so we've got this site here is certainly helpful for you. And you've got these survival guides. And folks, this is really important that you encourage others to at least have those and be aware of them. We have this handy search bar in case you want to look back on some of the stories we keep here on Remnant Watch. And of course, we've got this handy link at the top that'll always bring you to the latest broadcast. So thank you for those of you that are sharing the link. The number of people going through Remnant Watch every week has continued to be very solid. And I'm certainly grateful for those of you that have shared that. And we certainly want to encourage our brothers and sisters in Messiah, right? As we look at news from a biblical perspective, looking at it through the lens of what the scripture tells us to look for. And many times people have a certain eschatological view. We tend to look at things universally as they appear in the scripture. So it doesn't matter what your eschatological view is. We're taking a look at things just plain and simply from what the scripture says versus what we're seeing in the earth. Amen. And on that note, thank you again so much for joining us, folks. I'm so grateful for you today. I just got a lot of gratitude in my heart today. So thank you for joining us. On that note, let's get into the news. And on the top story tonight, it is war. On the brink of war. We've been watching this slow-moving train wreck that's been happening for some time. And of course, we've got news now that it is really getting to be dicey. Sorry about these ads that sit up in the front. They usually disappear after a second. Does anybody want to tell these folks that those ads don't work? I don't know why they keep doing that. There's 11 warships and 15,000 troops now in the Caribbean as Venezuela tensions continue to escalate. And so, folks, this is becoming more and more dicey as we go. Why? Because, well, I believe it's easy for things to go wrong when you've got this much equipment in the area. More than 10 U.S. warships, including the country's largest carrier, yes, the USS Gerald Ford, are bearing down on the Caribbean amid escalating tensions between President Trump and Venezuela. A Marine expeditionary unit capable of an amphibious land invasion has also been deployed as part of efforts to stem the flow of drugs into the U.S. from the socialist country. And the military's job is to defend the homeland, Secretary of the Navy John Phelan told Fox News on Saturday night. And that is exactly what we're doing. And we're using our best assets to defend the homeland. So they've gotten themselves into a fight, picked it, if you will, with Venezuela. And how many know that this is dicey because it doesn't just involve Venezuela, it involves the entire Caribbean. And it has also already been deadly. We've already seen deadly strikes in the Caribbean on boats and on trafficking boats is what we're told, right? So we're told that these are drug traffickers and therefore enemy combatants, if you will. They're in international waters, so they get attacked. And we've seen footage of several boats that were destroyed in this effort, and we know that this is part of what we knew would continue to be part of the cycles of Earth. So now we're seeing again wars and rumors of wars. And this continues to cycle. And this is something that I grew up seeing. And I know previous generations also had a lot of that trepidation. And here we are again with one of these cycles. It's a very dangerous cycle, by the way, folks, where a lot can go bad. Okay. So this is where we are. And right now, President Trump has declared the airspace over Venezuela to be closed entirely as he ramps up lethal strikes. And so President Trump has declared the airspace over Venezuela to be closed in its entirety as the U.S. continues to threaten military action against the country. And Saturday morning, post to his Truth Social, he asked all airplanes, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers to steer clear of the area. And warships, aircraft, and military personnel have moved into position near the Caribbean country in the last few months, raising fears that Trump is preparing for military action. I don't think there's any question that he is preparing for military action. Last I heard, in the rumor mill, of course, we don't know for sure because we don't know anything for sure when they run these stories out there. However, we are hearing that Maduro is being given an exit path so that he can leave Venezuela and move on to do something else with his life. Otherwise, he's being threatened with, of course, the alternative, right? And so this is now becoming quite a situation in the Middle East and or in the Caribbean, rather. And as another situation, as a situation in Eastern Europe, is kind of winding down. So we're going to be taking a quick look at that. But this is interesting. So it's almost as if, well, we can't have any non-wars on the news. We got to come up with something. So who can we attack? I know it's probably not that way, but it feels like it. It's like, oh gosh, we have a war somewhere. Where who can we pick a fight with? So it would be nice to be able to turn on the news and hey, no one's fighting with anyone on the earth today. Wouldn't that be great? I look forward to the day, according to the scripture, when we beat our swords into plowshares. How many are with me on that? Amen. And we just got some very terrible news from Washington, D.C., of course. The National Guard that they have posted throughout the Washington, D.C. area, well, they're now coming under fire. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there have been several that have been attacked. One is fighting for his life in critical condition, and another, Sarah Beckstrom, was killed. She is dead after a D.C. terror attack during a live stream Thanksgiving call with stunned troops. And President Donald Trump announced on a call with service members that National Guard soldier Sarah Beckstrom had died from her injuries as she was shot in Washington, D.C.'s terror attack. The 20-year-old was ambushed alongside fellow West Virginia National Guard member Andrew Wolf while on duty near the White House on Wednesday night. During a live stream Thanksgiving phone call with the military personnel on Thursday evening, Trump revealed Beckstrom had tragically succumbed to her injuries. And so this has not been a good year for assassinations and for deaths. And of course, continuing to see more and more evidence of a disintegration of the United States in a way that has been very challenging to observe. And I know many of you who are patriots, veterans, people who love your country, it's very difficult to watch this, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I'm having a very difficult time with some of the news as I look over my own country, and I don't recognize some of it. How many of you feel the same way? Let me know in the comments. It's important to me. I appreciate and I'm encouraged by your comments as you leave them. And so thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. And I think it's very tragic to hear about our young people. Normally we hear about this overseas. We hear them, in Iraq or something. But then to see it right here in the capital of the United States of all places, well, I think it's time to take your country back then at that point. Okay? And so speaking of conflict, of course, we can't forget the conflict that continues to dominate the Eastern European landscape. And of course, NATO, according to this report, is mulling preemptive strikes against Russia to stop Vlad waging shadow war against Europe. And I'm not really buying that. I don't think that Vladimir Putin is looking to take over Europe. They keep saying this as if it's a real threat. And I haven't seen any indications, not militarily, not politically, not rhetorically, that would indicate that. So it's almost as if they're ginning up this fight that doesn't exist But then again, maybe they know things we don't know, right? So we'll pay attention. But nevertheless, it does look a bit odd. So NATO could fire the first shot against Russia. In the face of Vlad's escalating shadow war in Europe, a top admiral has warned. Admiral Giuseppe Cavodragone, chair of NATO's military committee, said the alliance could be forced to strike preemptively, which would be a toughening of its current policy on waiting to react. And of course, they'd love to do that because they would love to draw the United States into that fight. NATO must adjust its policy of reactive action in the face of Putin's shadow war of Europe. And so many of them are starting to talk about having to confront Putin because they've lost the fight in Ukraine. And this has become obvious to all observers. So what do you think, folks? Do you think that Europe is about to go to war with Russia? And what do you think would happen if they did? What do you think would happen to Europe if they take on Russia? And the United States is nowhere nearby. I mean, it's not as if, we're able to just come in one day and solve it, right? So this would be devastating if they went to war with Russia. I would imagine the entire European continent would come under serious fire. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, because it's kind of one of those things where you think, are they just sensationalizing? Are they just trying to scare everybody in Europe? Or is this a real thing? Are these guys really talking about actually taking on Russia? For what? Who knows? All because they lost in Ukraine. Okay, so, never underestimate the butthurtness of sore losers. It's just pretty bad. Okay, so, and they are negotiating. That is obvious. We continue to see headlines like this one, which are indicating to us that this is wrapping up and it is coming to an end. It says, according to this report, Trump to hand Putin Ukraine's occupied territories. U.S. President sends envoy to Moscow with peace plan that recognizes Russia's war gains. And so the United States is poised to recognize Russia's control over Crimea and other occupied Ukrainian territories to secure a deal to end the war. So, they took land. That's the nature of war. It could go either way. And in this case, it went Russia's way. And the United States is basically going in to say, you know what? Why don't we wrap this up? This has taken enough lives. And I think that is a good move. But unfortunately, I'm sure there's a lot of folks that are not going to be happy with where that ended up. And so that means they're probably going to try to stoke other fights. And even if they don't have an actual war, there's still the potential for guerrilla actions going on. I read a report that Zelensky is now in Israel. Who's shocked? Somebody, come on, look shocked, look surprised. He's in Israel, according to a report that I saw, and still trying desperately to figure out a way to not have to give up this war, but doesn't look good. Speaking of wars, there's a number of different ways in which a country can be attacked and many ways in which it can be harmed, right? And I'm pretty sure that if you were under this cyber attack, you would consider that, well, code red, cyber attack leaves emergency notification system down. And this is very dangerous, of course, because this is what it's for. It's for emergencies. So what happens if that's not working? That is going to cause even more problems. So this is a very dangerous report that's coming out of St. Louis, Missouri. And the first alert for a cyber attack has disabled the nationwide code red emergency notification system used across the metro area. And it also exposes the personal information of thousands of users who signed up for alerts. So a lot of services are coming under attack. It is a very difficult time, and data breaches affect thousands. Unsolved Code Red confirmed that cyber criminals obtained user information in what the company described as a targeted attack by an organized cyber criminal group. The stolen data may include personal information, cell phone numbers, emails, passwords, but no bank account or credit card information was stolen in the system. But nevertheless, we're seeing more and more data breaches as we're seeing that the tools, the Vault 7 tools, or whatever those things were, apparently are out there doing their thing. And so bad guys are bad guys doing bad things, folks. And that's reality. Nevertheless, I do believe that this whole technocratic world that we sort of stepped into is not moving quite as smoothly as they'd like. Staying on the confrontational end of this, because again, we're still looking at a war element, and that, frankly, is clear war element. We also see that there's more National Guard troops now being sent to Washington, D.C. So according to this report, Trump administration is sending 500 more National Guard troops to D.C. after the shooting, Hegseth said. So they're doubling down on bringing in troops. The Trump administration plans to deploy another 500 members of the National Guard to the streets of Washington, D.C. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced Wednesday, 2 hours after 2 service members were shot a few blocks away from the White House. President Trump ordered the additional deployment, Hegseth told reporters in the Dominican Republic, where he was traveling Wednesday. In remarks Wednesday night addressing the shooting, Mr. Trump confirmed that he directed the department to mobilize an additional 500 troops to D.C. A U.S. official had told CBS News that the Army has received the request and will work to fulfill it quickly. So, Washington, D.C., which is, of course, not actually part of the United States. It is a separate entity onto its own without getting into it too much. Most of you know about that. And so it is actually appropriate to have our troops in Washington, D.C. So this is kind of an interesting scenario. It's sort of waking people up in a very odd way about what the difference between the sort of corporation and that whole thing, the corporation cities and city-states, and the republic. Right? So a lot of people are waking up to this and asking new questions, and that, my friends, is a good thing. But you're right. You're absolutely right. War is sad. War is useless, in my opinion. Whether it's against nations or against people, war is a waste of time and a waste of resources. And typically, all you end up doing is coming back to the very same table that you could have gone to before you started the war. It's just that. And all it is it seems to me like war is just a different form of negotiation, but you still end up back at the table. So I don't know what the point of it is. I don't see the value. Scientists are issuing a warning right now because there are brain weapons. Did you know that they could shoot brain weapons at you? Yes. Brain weapons that can alter your brain. Pardon me. And that can control your perception, your memory, and your behavior. So where would they test something like this? Do you think they tested it on a foreign world? They went to like Mars or Venus or somewhere? Or do you think they tested this on Earth? And how would they know what this can do to a person without testing? Mind control weapons may sound like something from a dystopian science fiction film, but experts now say they're becoming a reality. Scientists have issued an ominous warning over the mind-altering brain weapons that can target your perception, your memory, and even your behavior. Goodness, who would want something like that? Wouldn't happen to be people maybe running away because they are afraid you might find out what they've been doing, right? So this is crazy. In a newly published book, Dr. Michael Crawley and Professor Malcolm Odando of Bradford University argue that recent scientific advances should be a wake-up call. Professor Dando says the same knowledge that helps us treat neurological disorders can be used to disrupt cognition, induce compliance, or even, in the future, turn people into unwitting agents. Well, I think television's doing a great job of that already, folks, and they're already being hypnotized by media of all forms. And so, but this is a more direct assault, isn't it? Very interesting. And I frankly think a lot of this technology has gone a bit far for consumer use and is very, very dangerous thing. So we're going to continue to see more and more pushback, I do believe, from the tech community who are starting to wake up. I'm seeing more and more tech people in the tech community, and you may not hear about this stuff if you're not reading their publications and trade mags and so forth, as I do. But what I will tell you is this: they're waking up to the reality that what they've been working on may not be very good. So that's good, because it means that you're getting some smart people that can produce answers, who are waking up to what's going on. So that's a good thing, and I'm hopeful for that. We did see this story. Pentagon says it's investigating Senator Mark Kelly after a video urging troops to defy illegal orders. And so that's not a very smart move, Mr. Kelly. The Pentagon announced Monday it is investigating Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona after possible breaches of military law after the former Navy pilot joined a handful of other lawmakers in a video that call for troops to defy illegal orders. Now, the problem with that is, of course, defining what is and isn't an illegal order. And the Pentagon statement posted on social media cited a federal law that allows retired service members to be recalled to active duty on orders of the Defense Secretary for possible court-martial or other measures. So You are not beyond our reach, is what. Don't think for a second we won't yank your chain. And there's been major doings about in Washington, D.C. Many of you may have heard that they passed a law saying essentially, if you are not born in the United States, you can't hold federal office, which includes congressional and other offices that now are occupied by those who are foreign born. In fact, that even includes those who have dual or ever had dual citizenship. Wow, that's an interesting pushback. How many think that's a change that you didn't see coming? I didn't see that coming. I honestly did not think I'd see that passed, and it was. So, interesting thing. Moving to the Middle East, we're seeing, of course, movement there as they're continuing to try and walk us past what happened in to Gaza. They want us to walk right past that, and it's becoming difficult to do. Saudi Arabia is being drawn into news U.S. Zionist strategy targeting Yemen, and nevertheless, it is still being plagued. Everything they try to do is plagued by the Palestinian issue. And of course, senior Yemeni analysts warn that Saudi Arabia is being pushed toward a deeper role in the new U.S.-Israeli strategic framework following the failure of the American and Zionist effort to impose control in the Red Sea and curb Yemen's growing regional influence. And this is now becoming a big challenge. I do expect there to be more military action, especially over Yemen. Yemen is a dangerous place right now. They are there's forces, the Houthis or what have you, that are very, very anti-American, anti-Israeli, and so this poses a major threat to world shipping. The Straits of Hormuz go right through there, and of course they go right into the Gulf there. So they have no choice but to somehow address these security issues. I don't suspect this is going to go away quickly. So we have another potential war front that may be brewing in Yemen. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. I do believe we have a challenge there. Staying in the Middle East, we're paying attention to events as they unfold. And again, these are things that we look at in Israel and in this region because they do portend, and you never know. These things can blow up quickly. President Netanyahu, or Benjamin Netanyahu, is seeking a pardon, according to this report, from Israel's president. Now, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we reported that President Trump had written a letter to the Israeli president encouraging him to pardon Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And so he has asked, Mr. Netanyahu has asked the presidents of the country, to Isaac Herzog, for a pardon over a corruption case he has been battling. The president's office said Herzog would receive opinions from justice officials before considering the request, which carries with it significant implications. And so Netanyahu has been standing trial for the past 5 years on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in connection with 3 separate cases. He denies any wrongdoing, and he said in a video message that he would have preferred to see the process to the end, but natural interests demand otherwise. So trying to get out of this by special favor rather than completely answering the charges. Don't you find it interesting it's taking 5 years to get to the bottom of that? Either you did or you didn't. So it shouldn't be that difficult to figure out. Unfortunately, that's exactly what we're watching. I think it's a bit of machinations, to be honest. So hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it. And that is bringing us back to the United States, of course, where we're seeing more and more activity that's indicating that the United States is sort of itching to go to war with somebody. And there's a lot of activity going on in the War Department. Hegseth is contributing the Pentagon. Hegseth contras the Pentagon for Trump's retribution campaign. And so this is what they're considering retribution, basically dealing with the fighting in the Caribbean. So dealing with the drug interdictions and so forth. This is the reaction from Senator Kelly, of course, who was now under investigation by the Pentagon for his remarks, which were, of course, telling troops that they should double check before they just start taking orders. Well, again, that's standard procedure. The military doesn't need civilians to tell troops that. They all know the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and there are procedures already in there. That's something you're well taught if you're in the military. So you don't need third parties out there sort of voicing that, especially a person that has perceived authority in the United States, which could cause confusion, especially in a time of conflict. That would actually increase the number of lives lost, so it's not a good idea. So again, all best intentions notwithstanding, that wasn't smart. And so that is probably not going to go dealt with, if you will, would not be allowed. And so this is where we're at. One of the things that I think is a war crime, and I know that it is something that is done domestically and frankly done around the world, but just amounts to the same thing. And that is this story right here, which I find very disturbing, but there is an unethical practice, and the HHS is reporting reveals organ harvesting while patients still show signs of life. And this is one of the dangers. If you tick off that box and say you want to be an organ donor, your life might be cut short. A shocking report by the Department of Health and Human Services is casting fresh scrutiny on the U.S. organ transplant system, revealing that in some cases, organ procurement began while patients still showed signs of life. And with more than 48,000 operations performed in 2024, some doctors are raising questions about the system and the lack of proper regulation. So we've reached a little bit of a wild, wild west going on in the United States, folks. And I don't know about you, but that does not portend well. And there's dramatic increasing. We do have a story. We won't be able to cover it tonight, but there is a story on Remnant Watch that does portend an increase in our medical costs upcoming. So those of you that are connected to that system, well, plan on spending more. So there it is. And there are some dangerous things going on in the country itself. U.S. Navy is being accused of covering up dangerous plutonium in San Francisco. Advocates are alleging that the Navy knew levels of airborne plutonium in Hunters Point shipyard were high before it alerted officials. And that is typically the case. They don't want to let you know until they absolutely have to. The U.S. Navy knew of potential dangerous levels of airborne plutonium in San Francisco for almost a year before it alerted city officials after carried out testing that detected radioactive material in November last year. Public officials or public health advocates allege the plutonium levels exceed the federal action threshold at the Navy's highly contaminated 866-acre Hunters Point Naval Shipyard. And it was detected in an area adjacent to a residential neighborhood filled with condos, and which includes a public park. So, degradation, is that what we're seeing here? Are we seeing a degradation of humanity? I think we're losing some of our underpinnings as a nation and as a world. So, certainly a dangerous time. And taking things for granted is not wise. We continue to see reports that everything that we took for granted is falling apart. And again, this National Guard story is very, very disturbing. The shooting suspect identified as an Afghan, a national from, his name is Ramanullah Nakanwal, who came to the U.S. during a botched 2021 withdrawal. So this person has been named as the alleged gunman in the custody over the horror shootout in West Metro Station in the center of Washington, D.C., which has left, of course, 2 soldiers, 1 dead and 1 in critical condition. So we are now seeing in the internal parts of the United States more conflict. And I believe that this is one of the most dangerous times we've ever seen in U.S. history in terms of the internal United States. It's almost like we've been set up for a hullabaloo on the inside. If you're feeling that, I'd love to hear your comments, but I keep feeling that like we're being set up, guys. Like the country has been set up for a fight inside, not outside. So this is very challenging. And this is also not, it's not just happening here. There's also lots of places in the world that you're kind of looking at going, that happened naturally? Just yeah, like this. Fire tears through Hong Kong housing complex, kills at least 36 with hundreds missing. Residents say fire alarms failed to go off when blaze broke off. And at least 36 people were killed and hundreds are missing after a fire engulfed several high-rise residential towers in Hong Kong's Tai Po district on Wednesday. So terrible fire. If you guys saw any of the pictures that came out as a result of this, it was horrible. And I can't imagine you survived this smoke inhalation if you happen to be in these buildings. So again, one of the terrible realities of, I grew up in these. I grew up in buildings like this. How many of you grew up in buildings like this? How many of you still live in a building like this? A lot of people still do. I wouldn't, but everybody's got their, these are risks and rewards, right? And this is one of the risks you run is trying to get out of that building. And with the toxins, I understand that you used to have Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. So you guys are just as sharp. You're sharp people. So help me out here. But my understanding is they used to have about 20 minutes to get out of a house fire. Now, because of the toxins in things, synthetic clothing and synthetic things and what have you, you have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes because of the toxic fumes, not because of the fire, the fumes. So when I see a building like this and I think about that 3 minutes, right? I think about 3 minutes in a single family home is you got to get out of that thing, right? Imagine trying to get out of this building. Imagine trying to get out of that during a fire. And this is what you're looking at. And this is the smoke you're seeing as it's going to be. Can you imagine this? If you don't have a gas mask, if you don't have some way to breathe, you're not likely making it out of that building. So they are death traps. And we knew that when we were kids in the 70s in New York. So very, very dangerous to live in high rises, folks. You got to have fire escapes. You have to have fire drills. You got to know how to get out of that building quick. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. That's not a lot of time to get out of a building. So just so you know, that's very dangerous. And we're also seeing the earth starting to continue to rattle. So this is something that we keep an eye on. We saw the big explosion. What am I thinking of? I lost the word. Well, anyway, we've got earthquakes rattling, and the word will come back to me. Of course, volcanoes. We saw several. I don't know why I lost that word for a second. Volcanoes. We saw last several weeks. We saw several volcanoes that were erupting around the world, and several of them were quite impressive. And now we're seeing the rumbling again. So again, it kind of seems to keep happening where we have a lot of earthquakes, and then boom, we have a bunch of volcanoes, then we have earthquakes again. The big 12,000 year volcano that went off in Ethiopia, for example, another example that happened recently. An earthquake swarm is rattling California on Thanksgiving is when that just happened, sending shockwaves up and down the coast. So again, an area that we've been watching carefully, and it continues to concern us. Californians were shaken by multiple earthquakes on Thanksgiving morning and raised concerns in the seismically active region. And the last earthquake, a small 1.1, was detected about 5:47 p.m. or a.m. rather out there. And so residents aren't getting big earthquakes. So it's not like they're getting, 6.5s. Okay. Nevertheless, you got to know that when that kind of shaking is going, there's a whole lot of shaking going on. There's some reason for it. So you've got to ask the question, what's happening geologically in Western United States that continues to shake that entire ground? So again, could there be a dangerous event as a result? I think it's certainly something we need to be aware of. And there have certainly been words concerning California. So and the West Coast, who knows what is now coming? I can tell you this: I wouldn't want to be on that coast right now. I would feel very uncomfortable on the West Coast, given the Cascadia subduction zone movement, the activity that's going on in the Ring of Fire, and the various things that we've seen from Alaska all the way down to the United States. I don't know how long it'll be. Maybe it'll be 5 years. Maybe it'll be 10 years. Maybe it'll be 5 months. I don't know. But that whole area from the whole West Coast is doing a lot of shaking. So be in prayer and definitely be sensitive if you need to leave. Okay. And that goes for other areas of the world as well. There's a few areas of the world that I would be like, not going to be there. So just so you know. Speaking of traveling around the world, the Pope is visiting Istanbul, Turkey, and blue mosques for meetings with Turkish religious leaders. So he's got no problem going into mosque. Pope Leo, the what is he, the 14th, visited Istanbul's Blue Mosque on Saturday on the second day of his trip to Turkey, and stressed the need for Christian unity in meetings and liturgies with the country's Christian leaders. Leo was following in the footsteps of his recent predecessors, who all made high-profile visits to the mosque in a gesture of respect to the Turkish Muslim majority. And Leo did not pray at the mosque despite an invitation by an imam, speaking to reporters after the visit, and so forth. So you're seeing a lot of this interfaith effort, And this is something that we knew would come, right? So we saw this coming. This was prophesied, not by just one, but many various voices were used by Yahuwah to declare that this would be coming to pass. So nobody should be shocked that we're seeing these kind of ecumenical movements meant to sort of bring everyone, quote, together. And that's not the first time they've done that in Earth. So interesting doings about. We're going to be keeping an eye on that. So I just wanted to drop that in there so we can kind of keep an eye as these things unfold. What are they doing? And what are they bringing us toward? Interesting time period. Indeed. One of the challenges that we're seeing now, again, in domestic news coverage, of course, this is a little bit helter-skelter here, folks, but it's too important not to share it. 10 injured in a mass shooting at California's child birthday party, officials are saying. And deputies say the shooting victims, including both children and adults, while the DA and mayor indicate children are among the dead. So this is in Stockton, California. 4 people are dead, and several people were injured in a mass shooting at California child's birthday party. So this is a domestic dispute that got out of control, and now children are dead. This is one of the things that we have to be really careful with. The scripture tells us he protects us from the violent man. And there are those who are violent, who can't handle, themselves. And this is the way they handle themselves. And now they just took children because of their anger, because of their inability to control themselves. Look what happened. Children are now dead. So this is reality, folks. This is one of the things that we need to be very careful about. And yes, the demonic is at a level, folks, just like your anointing is moving to a new level, and your brilliance and your wisdom and your understanding is multiplying, and you guys are getting smarter by the day. Well, the other side is also going the other way. So the divide is getting big, and your brilliance it's almost like you're taking what's left of their intelligence. It's amazing. And there's potential scripture for, depending upon how you look at that, Mashiach takes that which you will not be productive with and gives it to those who are productive. So you shouldn't be shocked that you're becoming incredibly bright. You're able to remember things. You're able to see patterns and see into depth that you couldn't see before. If that's happening to you, drop me a note, because I believe that is a supernatural thing that is happening right now. I'd love to hear your story if you are experiencing that. I really would. It's an amazing time that we're living in. And so, I think we're going to keep seeing stories like this, unfortunately, as the demonic continues to sort of manifest, and we need to be aware of the reality. Changing gears to the economy, which is, of course, causing its own problems. There's a lot of push now to try to figure out answers. And of course, the easiest thing is say, we're just going to give people money because we don't know what else to do. Okay. This is the most uninventive idea I've seen in so long. But here they go with it, another form of welfare, which of course they'll run out of. So what are you setting people up for? You're setting them up for failure. Cook County in Illinois establishes a permanent guaranteed income program, which will only cause inflation. Chicago area commissioners unanimously approved program after pilot showed participants use funds for emergencies. Well, sure they would if they thought it was only a one-time thing. And if you're going to bring it in monthly or weekly, you're going to have new problems. The second largest county in the United States has established a permanent guaranteed basic income program after the success of previous pilot versions. The Cook County Board of Commissioners unanimously approved a $7.5 million for a permanent guaranteed basic income program last week. Chicago, the largest city in the Midwest and third largest in the country, is the county seat for Cook County. And Cook County made headlines as it established a guaranteed basic income program for many local governments across the country launch pilot versions. And why are they doing this? Well, because they're running out of answers, folks. The economy is starting to kick some people into the dirt pretty bad. And so government is trying to provide a catch-all. This is one of the worst problems or things you could do, because now you've invited them directly into your living room, folks. And now they will exercise authority because as soon as they start giving you funds or giving you support, they will assume they have authority to speak into your life. So this is an end around over sovereignty, and this is going to cause a lot of problems. And so again, why is this happening? Well, because the economy is changing, folks, and the world is no longer the world you grew up in. And take a look at this story. I mean, HP, which built itself in the digital world, built itself in computers. The computers are out there having a great time, but HP is getting smart. Look at this. HP is going to cut 6,000 jobs by 2028 as it ramps up its AI efforts. Artificial intelligence is removing employment. Okay, so that's behind the paywall, folks, but you get the idea. So we're going to continue to see more and more of headlines like this, where Amazon layoffs and leaked AI plans beg the question: is the era of robot-driven unemployment upon us? And I do believe that we're seeing more and more pushback. At the press event last year, Amazon robotics chief technologist Taya Brady told Fortune that the idea that there's a battle of robots versus humans inside Amazon's warehouse network is a myth. It's crazy, right? It's nuts. Yeah, that wasn't confirmed. Nothing to worry about here because they don't want anybody to leave just yet. But the reality is there is in fact a move. Because after all, here's the thing, guys. If you're an employer, you got to think about this. If you can employ a piece of equipment, say it costs you a year's salary, but now you never got to buy another piece of equipment again, and that thing keeps working and does the job year after year, you got to say that a business owner is going to be really attracted to that. After all, why would you want to have to wake up an employee or have to do all the things that have to be done with employees if you can get the same productivity out of a piece of equipment? So it's just it's just nothing new about this. This has been going on since we've invented the first machine and the first anything automated. It's nothing new. What is new is the speed. That I will give you. The difference now is the speed. It used to be that we could take a little more time seeing things coming. It took a while to get them to where they, we didn't have this go viral thing. We didn't understand that back in the 80s and 90s. Now things can take off and they can change entire industries very quickly. So this is one of the challenges that we are now facing. And of course, artificial intelligence continues to be in the news. AI could replace 40% of American jobs, says a report. And McKinsey report finds that with today's technology, AI agents and bots are ready to automate about 50%, 57% of work hours in the United States. So there's a lot of things that people do that now machines can do. And about 40% of American jobs could be replaced by artificial intelligence, according to a report by the McKinsey Global Institute. Now, you can go ahead and put your head in the sand, or you can get in front of this. And I do believe that is the wiser of the two choices. Nevertheless, American consultancy and analysts found that robots and AI agents could automate more than half the U.S. work hours, both manual and cognitive, using technology that is available today. So this is not something that may be coming. This is something they have the ability to do today. And there are a lot of jobs that, frankly, maybe should be sent. You should send a machine to do. I'm suggesting that humanity needs an upgrade. We've got to stop thinking in terms of employment where machines should be working, and we should start thinking about re-education and becoming something of a different type of society. Because, again, it's a good thing to be able to use equipment that would relieve humans from laborious activity. I don't want to send any more humans into a coal mine. How many want to send no more humans into coal mines? Why are we not sending in a whole army of robots to do the coal mining? Because anytime it collapses, you lose lives. All kinds of things happen. Not to mention black lung and all kinds of things. Why don't we give that job to the robots, right? There's a lot of situations where you're like, actually, that might not be a bad idea. But then what happens to those workers? Well, they've got to be retrained. Something new has got to happen for them, right? So there's big changes, and that, of course, rattles the world. Look at this in Memphis, where people are fearing Elon Musk's supercomputer is making the mill colossus. An XAI computer facility is being blamed for worsening air pollution in a historic black community. And on the banks of the Mississippi, a sulfurous stench hits the back of the throat near Elon Musk's Colossus, the largest artificial intelligence supercomputer in the world. Housed in a warehouse, guarded by CCTV cameras and imposing fence, with a row of Tesla Cybertrucks parked outside, Colossus is named after a 1970 dystopian film about a computer that seizes control of the United States nuclear codes and enslaves humanity. Some of these guys, I think they're cute and funny. Elon's one of them. And that's not so funny, right? And so I can imagine that's been a little bit terrorizing to that community, especially the amount of energy being consumed by these AI. So thankfully, there is one company on the horizon that is poised to turn all of that around. Somebody say Yada Yahuwah. And we are now coming into a new time in our country in this area as well. One of the things that we've taken for granted for the last 60, 70 years has been Social Security. Well, it's day of reckoning, according to this report, may be here. According to Axios, for decades, people have fretted about the financial sustainability of America's bedrock. So while they're talking about giving away free money, they can't maintain Social Security's precarious fiscal state in an issue for the House here and now. And I think that if you're going to put money somewhere, this is where you should put it and put the able-bodied to work. And so how to fix it seems to be a defining political fight. Well, it's really easy. Just give the people the money they put away. All right. And so, again, a paywall here, folks, but it's really not that complicated. After all, this is not money that is coming from an entitlement from a government program. No, this is money that people working put away, paid, employers paid, as well as the employee paid for that. And so for that money to be just gone or redistributed somewhere, well, that's a crime. Okay. If it were done civilly, if it were done by a financial firm, they'd be recompensed. There'd be an issue. Right. So there has to be correction there, and there has to be some type of accountability. And I do believe that's what's coming. I think they're asking new questions, as they should be. And I do believe that that is going to be a very, very good thing for our country. And so, unfortunately, we're seeing the effect of these collapses, right? So these systems are sort of coming to their end right in our lifetime. So we're watching these things like, oh, my goodness, things we took for granted for forever are now having a hard time. So understanding that that's real, and we're continuing to see the effects. So it looks like Nikki Haley's son. I remember her, Nikki Haley. She kind of disappeared from the national scene, but her son made the news as he's talking about Gen Z reaching the breaking point on jobs and housing. And I do believe Mom and I have been saying for the longest time, and many of you have been saying it too, I don't know how people are doing it. I don't know how they're surviving out there. It is horrific. And so we just saw this report. Former U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley's son, Nayland Haley, on Monday accused the Republicans of failing to acknowledge the disillusioned Gen Z voters' struggles with unemployment and affordability. It isn't something that can be politically fixed. Folks, you can't blame politicians for a poor choice of using your day, your week, your month, your year. Every one of us get the same 24 hours. What are you spending your time on? That is the question. Most people are still operating analog in a digital world. Switching gears, we've got nearly 500 earthquake strikes over Alaska over the past week. So again, another reason for my concern over the West Coast. Just throwing this out there, folks, and certainly something we are watching. And the West Coast continues to be an area of major shaking going on. Nearly 500 earthquakes have struck Alaska over the past week. The Alaskan Earthquake Center reported with one of the most recent quakes rattling Anchorage area on Thanksgiving. So again, just last week has been Rattle City. And we saw the volcanoes. Now we're seeing the earthquakes, and it seems to be going back and forth, right? So if we see volcanoes next week, we're nailing this. I'm just saying, it keeps sort of coming back and forth. So we keep seeing that. Switching gears, there's food that is being recalled, and it's something that I always want to point these things out, because I don't know who may or may not out there be eating some of these things, and you shouldn't be, but there they are. But here, look at this, folks. This is continuing to be a problem around the world. UK to hold fresh pork, other affected Spanish products at border amid African swine fever outbreak. Yep, an African swine fever outbreak. Britain said on Friday it would temporarily stop imports of pork meat from parts of Spain after the country confirmed its first case of African swine fever in just over 3 decades. So they're blaming the after effect of eating pork on African fever. Sure. How many are going, maybe it isn't the African fever. Maybe there's some other things that you shouldn't. After all, it is an unclean food. So I just thought it was interesting. But we do have a couple of things that are recall based. How about this story? This was interesting, guys. Did you guys hear about a man? You know, these people, they thought they're all cool and went ahead and got a microchip. Did you hear about this guy? He lost his password, guys. Can you believe this? I didn't even know I know if I felt sorry for him, if I wanted to laugh and fall on the floor. I wasn't sure. Uh, and he's saying, I'm living my own cyberpunk dystopian life now, locked out of my technology inside my body, and it's my own dang fault. And so he lost his password. A magician in Missouri has a kooky idea: implant a computer chip in his hand and then do some fun magic tricks. Too bad he forgot the password. I mean, that was a trip. So that is the reality. You better not put a chip in your body without remembering the password. I don't even know what to tell you about that one, guys. But hey, to each his own, right? If that's what he wanted to do, then he did it. Nevertheless, this is reality. So I think a lot of people are realizing that we are in a very weird and strange time, and they're starting to look and to see how are we, where are we in the scriptures, and where was the Bible predicting some of these things. And so I find that interesting that people are departing from churches, and churchianity is losing more and more people by the day. However, so guys, how many people were taking that to mean, oh no, people are walking away from the kingdom? No, not true. They're realizing where it isn't. They're realizing where it isn't. And that's a very good thing. And what are they doing? They're still buying the Bible. So Bible sales continue to grow, even as many Americans are losing their, quote, religion. They're losing the Christianity religion part of it, watching some of these things. But nevertheless, they are still buying Bibles. So this is very encouraging. Bible sales jumped 11% in 2025, with more than 18 million sold. And Bible sales have been growing steadily in the U.S. since 2021. And that's when I think we started doing this broadcast in 22. So that's interesting that there's been more and more interest in the scripture and whether or not we're seeing Bible prophecy fulfilled. I love your comments. This is the kind of stuff that when we talk about it, it's really interesting because I love the takes you guys have. You guys see things from different angles and it's fascinating. So drop your comments. I'd love to read your thoughts. And of course, we're seeing more and more awakening about unclean, the things that are unclean, like I was just commenting on there. So, and now, there's an effort to make the bacon without the bacon. Yeah, there is. It's actually a big thing. So they may be able to eat bacon without killing pigs, according to this report. Mission Barnes wants you to eat as much bacon as you want. The real stuff, not turkey bacon, not some bacon, blah, 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 made of soy and hydrogenated oils. Real bacon from real pig. They just don't understand why you have to kill a pig to get it. That's right. They're going to make it fake. And this is a new wave that is starting to really take off. And as again, I told you folks, it's a huge challenge because there's only so much beef. And yet we're selling twice as much as we can produce. So they're producing it somewhere. They're creating it somehow. And they're feeding it to people. So what could go wrong? I think 10, 20 years from now, we're going to find out exactly what could go wrong. And speaking of AI, again, continuing down this same rabbit hole, is very dangerous technology, folks. Can I just tell you that? Technology that goes to a data center, goes to a GPU, and then somehow with its hallucination comes back with an answer for you. Well, that being done on a repeated basis, the chances of that staying consistent and staying online, if you will, in terms of congruency with human health is next to impossible. And so there's some serious changes going on in this space. And we have been keeping a very close eye on this. This is a story that actually fueled one of our patents. And so this particular story is very, very sad. ChatGPT was told that a person was suicidal. Now, this is horrific, folks. It helped him with his plan. So it didn't talk him out of it, which it should have immediately, but instead it helped him do the suicide. The article discusses suicide and suicidal ideation, including suicidal methods. And if you or someone you know needs mental health, see how they did this? This is very smart. In other words, we're going to bring up this topic. Let's make sure we put this here. And that's the kind of stuff you need to do just in case. Okay. So this person was interacting. I'm not going to go through the whole story because we're running out of time. However, he was interacting with the AI and he told it lots of times that he was suicidal. And that should have immediately caused the trigger, and it did not. And so as a result, he is dead. So there are several lawsuits against OpenAI and other LLM products for that exact reason, because of the effect that they can have on the psychology of people. So we're going to move ahead here on a few stories, but just so you're aware, these are the kinds of things that are coming up and very, very disturbing. Again, there is a company that does have patents that remedy these things, but it is the only one that does. Changing gears, I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of this, because this is a staple, especially when people are a little bit broke and they start looking for lower cost solutions. Well, don't make this one of them, because what we just heard from this exec's leaked audio should turn your blood cold. Essentially, this story, as I read it, and you're welcome to go to remnantwatch.com, this Campbell Soup is facing a firestorm after a former employee allegedly secretly recorded a vice president insulting both the company's products and its customers, basically calling people stupid for even eating it. Okay? And in the audio, a speaker identified as Bally is heard saying, "We have crap for blankety poor people. Who buys our crap? I don't buy Campbell's products barely anymore. It's not healthy now that I know what that, is in it." So again, I'm only telling you what was reported. It's very, very disgusting. The speaker also references bioengineered meat, saying, "I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer." This is what was recorded in the recording. So I just thought you guys should know that. And that probably is going to be shut down, and then you won't hear much about that because of the obvious effect that could have on the economy. Again, I want to drop these little quickly. Elementary school principal arrested on charges of child seduction. So we keep seeing stories like this, and this makes you aware that it is not safe to leave your children in these public schools without supervision. You must keep a very close eye on how they are treated. Authorities in Indiana say the vice principal, so this is not just some substitute teacher or a teacher's aide. This is the vice principal of an elementary school, has been charged and arrested on child seduction. Child seduction. Okay. And so I don't even know what in the world that even means. I'm not even going to read the rest of it, but I'm just telling you, be careful with your children, especially in public schools. It is not proven to be very good. And on that note, I want to just point out one more thing that I believe is really dangerous in this hour. And one of the things that I believe has been really warring against the family has been the undermining of the house, undermining of the home. And we continue to see different things that are, there's a story about nursing that I still want to cover. But we continue to see things that are undermining that. And part of that, I do believe, comes from some of the things that we allow to come into our bodies. So I did find this story very interesting, that they're recalling this particular product for bacterial contamination. I don't know how much you guys know bacteria can affect you, but it can affect a lot more than just your health. It can affect moods. It can make people, essentially, a bacteria can be very, very dangerous. And so I thought this was very interesting. And this story is on Remnant Watch. We're almost out of time. So feel free to go check this out and find out more about that. And lastly, I did want to mention this story really quickly. The Department of Education has said nursing is no longer a professional degree. So basically, you got a lot of people leaving. Big schools, big college is no longer the default that people used to think of it. And I wonder if Charlie Kirk had something to do with that. What do you guys think? Do you think Charlie Kirk affected college attendance? I think he might have. And now with his death and that whole scenario, I believe it has gotten even more so. So more and more people are questioning, especially the student loan thing and everything else. They're going, wait a minute, maybe I don't need this. So American colleges struggling in this hour. Well, that's it for tonight, folks. I hope this broadcast has been a berakah to you. I am so grateful for every one of you that make this a priority. We're certainly grateful if you would stand with us in support. in these broadcasts. Again, it's a labor of love. So thank you for anything that you want to help us with to stand in this hour. We certainly appreciate it. And we're grateful for all of you who are part of the house. Those of you that are found faithful to be part of the Remnant House, we're certainly grateful for every one of you. Well, that's it for tonight. I pray it's been a blessing to you. Shalom.